Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for our webinar for content marketing. I'm Aubrey Kirkendall and I'm joining you today from our headquarters in Lambertville, Michigan. Before we begin, I'd like to share some technical considerations with you. Keep in mind we do have the chat window available for anyone who wants to ask any questions as we go along. We will leave some time at the end for a question and answer session. We are also going to be recording the webinar and sharing the slides with you at the end so that you can share this content with other people, or you can rewatch it if you find this content useful. Additionally, we invite you to join us on social media. If you're on Twitter, you can live tweet with us using the hashtag bookmarketing. And now I would like to introduce our host. Today we are with Becky Robinson. Becky is the founder and CEO of Weaving Influence. And she has led her team in successfully launching over 90 books. She's also a wife, a mother of 3, and she's currently training for her next marathon. I don't know how many marathons she's actually run yet, but 4? This is the 4th. This is your 4th, okay. So thank you for joining us, Becky, and I will hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Aubrey, and I'm glad that all of you are here. We were laughing right before we started the broadcast because we saw that our friend Nate Regier is on the line. And Nate, I'm assuming you're going to make fun of me because I'm using my old headset instead of my new cool wireless headset. So maybe after this I'll get motivated to try to figure out that wireless headset. But today we want to talk about your content portfolio. So if you are an author or if you're an aspiring author, it's likely that you have created a lot of content. And so what we want to do is talk about the way that you can leverage that content effectively in marketing your book and in growing your brand online. So let's see if I can figure out how to get my slides moving. So this graphic really represents the fact that your content is a valuable treasure to you. And we have it in this format because I would like to challenge you to really think about the content that you've been creating over your career as valuable as your financial portfolio. And in the same way that your financial portfolio has different types of investments, likely your creation of content over time has different types of investments that you've made. So maybe you've written a book or several books. Maybe you've written blog posts. I've written thousands. Perhaps you've written and placed articles around the web, or you've recorded interviews. You know, I could just easily add to this portfolio video. I was talking with the client earlier this morning about the value of video. And so as you think about your own content creation over time, it's very helpful to have it organized and to understand the value of the content that you've been creating. I always encourage clients to catalog their content in some way. Most often a simple spreadsheet is a helpful way of really taking stock of the value of content that you have available to you in any content marketing effort. So I'd like to ask you to just pause for a moment and maybe give yourself a homework assignment to begin the process of cataloging your own content library so that you understand the value of the content that you've been creating in the world over time. Now, for some of you, if you've been creating content over a long career, it's possible that you have some content that you've created that predates the internet. So in most cases, I tell clients, make sure you capture and catalog the links to all the content that you've created. Well, it's possible that you have value that isn't contained on the internet. Maybe it's in a hard drive on your computer, but it hasn't been published on the web. You know, maybe it's in print. And any investment that you can make in translating all of that content and getting it onto the internet or having it in a way that's accessible to you can be very helpful. And so, using the metaphor of financial assets, what I'd like to do is encourage you to view any of the content that you've created over time as a liquid asset that can be reshaped and reformed and repurposed over time to help you get the word out about your message. And so if you have written a book, let's start with that. So likely your book has 30,000 to 50,000 or even more words in it. And you pour tons of time and energy into crafting that book. The good news is that that book itself is a very valuable asset in ongoing book marketing. And if you view your book as a liquid asset, then you know that your book can be reused in a variety of ways. So this graphic represents the variety of ways that you can use the content in your book in ongoing marketing. So your book could likely become hundreds of short bursts of content that you can use on Twitter or on Facebook or in other social posting. Your book could provide inspiration for any number of newsletters that could fill a year's worth of newsletter plans. Your book could easily become a series of videos that you can share on YouTube or in other ways to help people understand your content and message. Your content can also be brought to life through graphics. So once you have, that is very strange. How is it possible that you can see my control panel? There. Is it gone? Hopefully so. At any rate, so don't want to distract you with my control panel showing on the screen. Once you've chunked your book into social media posts, those social media posts in terms of the short quotes can be made into beautiful graphics. If you've written a book, you could also very likely turn your book into a specific number of keynote speeches that you could use at community or national events. Your book also can serve as the inspiration for articles that you could place around the web on digital media outlets or even in print papers. It's an obvious but important thing to remember that your book can become inspiration for or even be chunked into blog posts that you can use on your own website. Your book could serve as inspiration for a podcast series and give you ideas about questions to ask your podcast guests. So if your book is a liquid asset, then what I want you to consider and be focused on is the fact that once you have that asset, the book itself can become so many other content pieces that you can use in your marketing. And another thing would be not to neglect the parts of your book that never actually made it into print. So at any given time throughout the editorial process, there are likely stories or case studies or even entire chapters that never made it into the book. And those are part of the valuable content portfolio that you have access to. Now, here's the second graphic. This one is just slightly different. And I like to think that this is the one that represents the content that I've been creating in the world over the past 10 years. So if you have never written a book, you have likely created lots of other types of content assets that are part of your portfolio. And so I want to challenge you, if you haven't yet completed the book that's just ready to be written, that any number of these other types of content that you've been creating over time could be reshaped and repurposed and formed into this solid asset that you come to think of as a book. So think about the tweets that you've written. I have probably written over 100,000 of them. The newsletters that you've sent out, the videos that you've created, any graphics that you've generated, any keynotes that you've given, any articles that you've written, any of the blog posts, and consider how you might be able to translate all of those into a book that could add value in the world. So there are a few different ways that you can repurpose your content. You can take longer form content and make it shorter. Cut it down into short bursts that people can access quickly and benefit from. You can take that shorter form content and make it longer form. So you might have a blog post that you wrote, it has 5 points. If you expand on those 5 points, that could become an entire book. You can take text and make it visual. You can take text and create video. You can take text and make it interactive in a webinar or other online format. So as you're thinking about repurposing content, realize that content is liquid. It has extreme flexibility, and it can be shaped and reused in lots of ways to reach your audiences. So beginning to capture your content portfolio. I referenced this at the beginning, that it's exceedingly valuable to take stock of what content assets are available in your portfolio. So you could ask yourself a series of questions. What short form content do you already have? What long form content do you already have? What images do you own? Now this is an important one. If you're just getting started with content marketing, you may not know that it's exceedingly important to be very careful about the images that you use and share on the internet. The most safe bet is any image that you yourself have taken and own. I have hundreds of them on my iPhone, actually thousands. It could be those images that you have actually purchased. So there are a number of reputable stock image sites on which you can purchase images, and it's very important to make sure that the images that you're using are images that you own. You can ask yourself, what video have you created, or what video do you want to create? I just booked a day on the calendar later in October to create some new video myself, and it's very exciting to have that to look forward to. Another thing is, what ideas can you capture? So if you start to take a look at your content portfolio and maybe you find that you're coming up short in one or more areas, maybe you haven't yet taken a dive into blogging. So it's useful as you begin to capture your content portfolio to begin to keep an idea, a creative list of topics that you can write about or video blog in the future. So I think we're ready to take your questions. Aubrey, I would love to invite you back so that we could talk through any questions that our audience might have. Boy, I went through that really fast. I think I had a lot of coffee today.
Gotta love that coffee. Okay, let me take a look here. Okay, so yeah, again, I just want to invite anybody who has any questions. Please find your chat window in the GoToWebinar panel and feel free to enter your questions there even as we talk through some of the other ones. We do have one question here. What's the best way to catalog content?
Well, so my preferred way is a Google Drive spreadsheet. Google Drive is great because you can update it in real time and you can share it with others. And so if you're comfortable with a spreadsheet format, typically what we'll do is we'll divide by the types of content that there might be. So you could have a section of blog posts. You could also have a section of articles. You could have a section of tweets potentially. And one of the things you want to make sure is that you have the reference to where that content is available. So either the link where it's published or the physical place that you have the content available. So potentially if these are things that predated being on the internet, you could reference, it's on this computer or whatever.
Right.
So that is the best way. And there is a blog post on the Weaving Influence blog if you want to search for content library that outlines a few steps for getting started in cataloging your content. One thing that I would note is that it's always better to start earlier because this task can feel so overwhelming. And I know I think about the many guest posts that I've published around the web over time that I never captured, that likely are still out there and could be really useful and valuable for me to reuse, but I didn't take the time to capture them. So if you're just getting started on this path of placing articles other places than your own domain, it's a really great idea to get those links and make sure that they're kept up to date over time.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is a really good one that I'm sure a lot of people are probably wondering about. We hear this term a lot, but duplicate content, what kind of issues do we need to be careful of in terms of dealing with duplicate content?
Wow, well, Aubrey, that is a question that we keep coming back to as an organization, and it seems that for every SEO expert that you talk to, there is a different opinion. So let me start by saying that one of the ways that we recommend highly that clients duplicate their own content is to take the content that they're writing on their own domain and repurpose it on LinkedIn. I actually, since we know that Nate is on the call, was searching for a blog post of Nate's the other day, and when I searched by what I knew was the title of the post, I found the link to the article on LinkedIn, but for some reason Google did not take me to the article on his domain, next-element.com. So based on what I saw related to search engine optimization of the content that Nate is repurposing on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a prime place to be duplicating your own content, and there doesn't seem to be any penalty associated with that. There are different views about duplicating content or repurposing the exact same content, and so I don't want to give a definitive answer here, but I'll give you a few ideas that I'm comfortable with, and hopefully those will be of help. My current best practice is it's fine to duplicate the content as long as you have a link within the content that takes the reader back to the original place where the content was posted. A caveat would be if you're posting on a digital media site like Forbes or Huffington Post or a blog owned by someone else, you want to check and see what that site's policies are before you duplicate the content. So that is my best answer for the moment, and I'm happy to share some articles as follow-up if that would be helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, that seems like a topic that's always kind of changing, and like you said, people have multiple ideas on what the actual, right way to do it is.
Yes.
Okay, should I be worried that people will catch on that I'm reposting the same ideas?
That's a really great question. So a couple of things about that. One of the things that I know for sure is that if you are seeking to make a difference online and grow your influence over time, you hopefully are beginning to attract new audiences all the time. And so, for example, I've been blogging since 2009. Chances are most of the people following me today have never read most of the content that I've published over time. So being able to revive and revitalize the content that I previously posted in order to expose my new audiences to my best thinking is valuable. I think that we all assume people are paying more attention than they are, and the chances of someone actually picking up on the fact that you're repurposing content, if you do it in a way that's smart and creative, I think it's just highly unlikely that anyone's ever going to notice or care. Probably if they do notice you doing it in a savvy way, they might just take it as like, wow, this person is really smart in the way they use the content that they have. Now, that said, I do think it's important for anyone who wants to build thought leadership to express new ideas over time. So if you're looking at, okay, I have this portfolio and wealth of content that I've created in the past, you also want to have new things that you're creating and thinking about. And so that people can really be inspired by the fact that, hey, Becky always has a new idea about an approach to book marketing, or, I see that Becky has this book of work and she shares about it in different ways, but it seems like she's always going to be pushing the edge for innovative thinking. So I think it's a both and. So you want to be able to both highlight your valuable content that already exists and begin to bring a new and creative spin, and adding in and mixing in some new content over time. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Sure.
How often should I be sharing content realistically?
Oh, wow. That is a really tough question, Aubrey. And I think that for every person that the answer might be different. If you're talking about a blog and making a blog viable on your own website, the rule of thumb that I have is that you should be blogging a minimum of once per week on your own domain. And I liken that to a television show. Our family gave up cable over a year ago, and so we're not really watching any TV shows that come on at a certain time. But remember back in the day when we all used to do that? Who remembers like Thursday night Friends, in the 90s, and you had to be in front of your TV at 8 o'clock on Thursday night to watch the latest episodes? I think in much the same way, people are looking for and expecting, if they're going to return to a website again and again to get content, they like to be able to expect when that content is going to be there. Now, if you happen to go visit beckyrobinson.com right now, you might notice that I haven't posted in at least a month and a half. No one's going to be going back to my domain to read my blog if I'm not blogging. And so what you want to do is come up with an approach that you can sustain, but allows the people who are looking to you for guidance to be able to rely on the fact that you're going to be creating new content over time. So I would say for blog posts, like I said, my rule of thumb is no fewer than once a week. On weavinginfluence.com, we have, I think, 2 new blog posts every week. And so if people are coming to see what we might have to share, you should see new content there at least twice a week. On leadchangegroup.com, which our team owns, it's a multi-author blog, we have content new every single day. One thing to know is that the more often you post, the more traffic you will be able to drive. Because as you promote the content that you have, it will be of interest and people will click through. If there's nothing new, there's not really a reason for people to click through.
Thank you.
Sure.
How can I make sure that I'm posting the right kind of content? Should I look for certain types of feedback?
Well, I would love some clarification about what kind of feedback. I would caution anyone who's blogging to not rely too much on comments. I've noticed over the past 7 to 8 years that the amount of comments that people see on their blogs has decreased over time. Back in my early days of blogging, I would judge the effectiveness of my content by how many comments I had or how much engagement I could create or how much interaction there was. Now, apart from a few like superstar bloggers, I think many of us who are blogging today don't get a whole lot of feedback in the way of comments. So what you want to do is you want to come up with a set of metrics about your content that's somehow separate from comments if possible. You could take a look at how often the post is socially shared. You could take a look at the type of traffic that the post might get. The other thing is you also, if you have the creation of your content as part of a bigger overall marketing plan, then you're going to realize potentially that, even if this one post that I spent some time writing doesn't get a lot of traffic perhaps it's part of a new book that you're writing, and you're using the blog as a place to explore ideas and refine your writing. And so there's other value that can come apart from feedback that you might get. If you do have a newsletter list and folks are regularly interacting with you about the content you create, then sure, it's a great idea to ask people for feedback. You know, is this helpful? Which posts do you prefer? But I think that for most of us who are blogging, it can sometimes seem solitary, and we might wonder what value people are seeing in the content. So asking is great. So I hope that answers your question, and if you want to clarify in any way, I'm happy to readdress my comments. So thanks for all the amazing questions today, folks. It's really great.
Yeah, we have a few more. Let's see. What's more important, quality or quantity?
Well, that's a good question. I would fall on the side of quality if there's a consistent approach to creating that content of quality. You know, when we look at Lead Change Group, like I said, it's a multi-contributor blog that we run. You know, I want both. I want us to post new content every day, and I want it to be the top quality to attract readers. So yeah, I don't think that there's a lot of value in putting out a ton of content if there's not any worth that your communities are seeing from it.
Definitely. Okay, let's see. This one is, my main goal is to make money, but how much of a sales spin should I put on my content versus just altruistically posting?
So that's a good question. I think that what I've learned about content marketing is that content marketing takes a long time to turn into revenue. I had this really idealized view in the early days when I first started blogging that, you know, I was blogging for a while and I had a few people following me, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to take this blog content that I've been working on and I'm going to create it into some products. I'm going to, you know, write some ebooks and I'm going to sell them. And what I very quickly found out is that no one was really ready to buy from me. So I think that each business owner or entrepreneur or thought leader who's looking to generate income from their content really has to be aware that content marketing is a long-term game that helps you begin to build relationships with people, and throughout the sharing of value, people will begin to trust you and they may be willing to spend money with you in ever-increasing ways. But I don't know that there's any kind of overnight success that if you start blogging, people are going to start giving you money for whatever you're offering in the world. I think that this whole system works much more effectively if you are able to show up in the world to share content of value without expecting it to turn into sales at first, or that your whole sales approach is not based on your content marketing. Let me try to give an example. So, you know, suppose you are a person who's writing about a certain topic and you're altruistically, if you will, like the question asker asked, you know, sharing content of value. What will happen is you become memorable for that area. And so by sharing your content consistently over time, then if someone needs that thing that you're selling, they'll remember, oh, well, you know, John is always writing about X, Y, Z. I wonder if he could be a solution for this need that I have, or I wonder if he has a product or service that could help me. So I don't know exactly if I've articulated that in a way that is helpful, but I would always start with generosity as it relates to sharing what you know in a way that can add value to others, and have the sales expectation be somewhat separate. Because there are tons of people that will, you know, participate in a free webinar or download a free ebook or read free blog posts or, you know, watch free videos who are never going to spend money. However, the creation of all that value in the world is definitely adding toward a return that you will see.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, last one here. What is more important, posting on my own blog or guest posting on others' blogs? And as a follow-up to that, where should I put my very best content?
Great questions. So I think that a lot depends upon what you're trying to achieve at any given moment. So if you are marketing a book and getting ready to launch the book into the world, it's exceedingly valuable to place your content on lots of different guest sites in a way to extend the reach of your content. And this is also true if you're just getting started. So if you're in kind of growth mode and wanting to expose your ideas to lots of new people, then posting your content on a site that might have more traction than your own domain is very valuable. All that said, I do believe that the most important thing to do is to post your best content on your own domain, because it's the only place that you own and control. So I referenced a few minutes ago, that in my early days of blogging, I had guest blog posts on various places. I didn't really keep track of that. If those people, happen to shut down their domains or redevelop their site and the links are broken, I might have no way ever of accessing that content again. And so when you choose to post your best content on your own domain, even if it's repurposed or duplicated on your own domain, you ensure that you have access to the value in your content portfolio. So a quick story, when I first started blogging, I was blogging for a university. And I did that for a year and a half or 2 years. I blogged 3 times a week. And when that blog work ended, I asked for permission to export all the content so that I could have it on my own domain. And I'm so glad that I did. If you go to the archives of Weaving Influence, you'll see that at the bottom of many of the early posts, it says this was originally posted on Mountain State University Leader Talk. Well, Mountain State University lost their accreditation. The site's no longer up. If I had not exported all that content that I wrote, I wouldn't have it today. And so that story points to the importance and value of really capturing and cataloging and, if needed, repurposing the content that you've created over time so that you have access to your best thinking and your ideas. And honestly, it's a little bit embarrassing to me to go back and read the stuff I wrote in 2009. That actually is part of the joy also, is to be able to see the development over time and to see, when I used to blog at first, it was hard. Blogging has gotten much easier for me. But it's just great to be able to see the development of even your own writing skill, your ability to capture ideas, any of that, if you can capture and access your content over time.
Perfect, thank you.
I think we're almost out of time, Aubrey. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true, and that follows up all the questions we had. So I don't know if you want to maybe talk about the next webinar that we have coming up?
Sure. So in case you're wondering what you can expect from our book marketing webinars this fall, we are going to have 2 different webinars each month. One will be a topic like the one we had today, and it might not always be me presenting. I have some amazing professionals on my team who are on the schedule in the months ahead. And then once every month, we're also going to have an open Q&A. Ask me anything. Come and ask me anything about book marketing, and that is coming up on September 27th at 12 p.m. Eastern. You can sign up for those book marketing webinars, and I think we have many of them already on the website. They're at weavinginfluencelab.com. Weaving Influence Lab is also the home of our Book Marketing Action Guide, which is a DIY book marketing course that's available for purchase. We would love to have you participate in the Book Marketing Action Guide, and you can find all of that by visiting weavinginfluencelab.com. If you have any additional questions, you are always free to email me. I'm Becky at weavinginfluence.com, and we will be sending out the follow-up email today with this recording and these slides for your use. Thanks so much for investing your time with us.